Hello students, welcome to your channel Zebish English Classes. I hope you all are keeping well, and what I have picked up today is this book Echoes, which is from ISC board for the students of 11th as well as 12th standard. So from this book Echoes, what I have picked up today is this eighth story, that is the singing lesson, which has been written by Catherine Mansfield. It is a very beautiful story and we have to understand what this story contains. So actually, it is a very simple story. When we go through this story, we find that there are very less number of characters that have been discussed in the story, and the story is not talking about a certain plot or something as such, but the story is very simple, and its narration is also very simple. What Catherine Mansfield has tried to portray through this story is the emotion in different ways, and how the circumstances develop the different types of emotions in us, and then we as human beings have this tendency to manifest those emotions in our demeanor or behavior, just because we fail to hide it in ourselves when we are feeling that particular emotion. And that has been very beautifully described here in this story. Actually, this story is a part of the garden party and other stories, and this particular story is, I think, the most simple one. However, it has got this beauty of the different types of overwhelming emotions, extreme emotions, and how they have been manifested by Catherine, that we will see in this story. So this story, which is entitled as the singing lesson, in this particular story we have got certain very important characters. So the characters that are very important are Miss Meadows, who is a music teacher. Then her fiance is there, who is Mr. Basil. And then we have got another teacher who is a science teacher here in this story. So we will see. So although the science teacher is just another character and it is not a very important character, what we have to understand in this story is basically all about these two characters, that is Miss Meadows, who is a music teacher, and then her fiance. So these are the two important characters around whom the entire story will revolve, and it will come to an end. So we see that in this story, as the story begins from there, then onwards, it happens that the reflection of the emotions start. So we see as the story starts that Miss Meadows, who is a music teacher, she looks very upset and very depressed and sorrowful as she is about to enter her classroom. So she is heading towards her class and she is in a very sad mood. Then there is a symbolization in the story used. That symbolization is actually referring to the cold doors, corridor, sorry. When Miss Meadows is moving towards her classroom, she is passing through a corridor, and that corridor seems to be cold to her and grey to her. So now these words, cold and grey, are actually symbolizing the sadness inside her heart, which is actually being reflected through this kind of vision, that the corridor is grey, and this kind of a feeling that the corridor is cold. Just because she is feeling cold inside, just because she is feeling bad inside, she is sad inside, she is depressed inside. The cold word, as we know, symbolizes sadness, death, and depression. So here it happens that Miss Meadows, who is sad and depressed inside, she is not feeling happy at all. Her heart is sad, and that sadness which is inside her is being reflected in her thoughts, in her imagination, and that's why she feels that the corridor is cold and it is grey, just because she is sad inside. So whenever we are sad inside or happy inside, whatever be the emotion going on inside our hearts, that always reflects in our behavior outside. Despite the fact that we try not to let it be shown to the people around us, Yet, we cannot do anything about it. It so happens that we eventually fail to hide those emotions just because these emotions, when reach to that extreme level and it is overwhelming, in that case it is just kind of impossible for us. We stop getting the control over them anymore, and then it so happens that the emotions start reflecting outside. And this is something, the most important idea which has been discussed, which has been portrayed in the story. So, this core idea, which has been manifested, has to be taken into consideration even while writing answer, uh, regardless of the question. Whatever be the question will surely be somehow or the other related to this core idea in the story, because it is very important. It is all about the psychology of a human being, how one thinks and how one feels. So whatever we feel, that is always reflected, and this is something which the writer has tried to show you in this particular story. Through this particular story, the writer has tried to show you this human tendency of not being able to hide whatever is being felt inside. So I hope it is clear now. And now let us start the story and see what is the problem, what all happens due to which we find Miss Meadows in such a depressed, way. So what happens that Miss Meadows is actually very, very sad and upset, and she's trying to hide her sadness from the people in her surrounding, like other teachers who are there. And it is simply because she does not want them to come to know that she is sad or something wrong, something bad has happened to her. However, as actually something bad has happened to her, it is just because her fiance, whom she loves a lot and she was about to get married to, had written a letter to her in which he denied to marry her just because he told in the letter that he was no more interested in marriage itself, and that the idea of marriage had started appearing a disgusting idea to him from then onwards. And that's why he had taken the decision to give up that idea of marrying his beloved. And he also kind of emphasized in that letter that it was not at all the thing that he was interested in some other girl or he would like to marry some other person, but it was just a concept of marriage itself, which her fiance had started feeling, irritating or kind of disgusting. So he was no more interested in the marriage itself. He had stopped believing in that school of marriage. So, for that reason, he decided to leave his beloved, and he also gave her that news that he was no more interested. And that news, as soon as it got broken to this lady, Miss Meadows, as soon as she got to know that and read the letter, she became upset from then onwards just because she loved him a lot and she was very much desirous of marrying him, and she had been dreaming him for such a long time that she couldn't wait to marry him. And when she got to know that wait was over forever, as he would never marry her, so she got upset, and that was such an overwhelming sadness that she couldn't hide that emotion of hers despite her best attempts and endeavors to do so. And it had started reflecting in her behavior even in the classroom during her lecture while she was trying to teach her students how to sing. So, what happens? She enters the classroom, and even her different behavior is noticed by her students, who kind of get scared as well, seeing their teacher in such a mood, which was kind of unexpected and completely unusual for them. So, when Miss Meadows enters the classroom, she's very sad, and that's why she kinds of she does not understand, does not realize that the students are sitting in front of her, and she remains in the same mood And it happens that one of the students also offered her a flower, which went unnoticed by her. So she did not even notice that, she did not even respond to that greeting which she made to her. So this is how she was like lost in her contemplations, or you can say deep thoughts. Contemplations means deep thoughts. So she was lost in her deep thoughts regarding her marriage and her lover. So this is how she was so sad, and that's why we can see that it was reflected in her behavior, because that particular day she asked her students to take out a lament instead of a happy song. She asked them to take out a dirge. Now dirge is a sad song or a lament, so she asked them to recite that she asked them to sing that song. So she decided that she would teach them how to sing a lament, that particular lament that she had chosen that day. So now here this is very very important, which you must mention in your answer also, that she chose to teach a lament that day. It was simply because she herself was lamenting over some grief on that particular day. So this is how we can come to this conclusion, that her grief inside was being reflected in her behavior, demeanor, and in her activities. And for that reason itself, she had chosen to teach how to sing a lament that on that particular day. Although she was supposed to choose a happy song, but she chose that lament. So she asked them to take out, and they took out that lament, and then she had started teaching them how to sing that. And while singing, she was actually feeling those words as well. As you must have noticed it at times, that whenever we are sad, we like to listen to a sad music, and when we are happy, we love to listen to a happy music. So it's all about our mood that we decide a particular song to listen. Just because it happens that music plays a vital role in giving us some kind of a sensation or a feeling. So when we are sad, we do not like to listen to a pop music or something like that, but we love to listen to a sad and soft and soothing music, just because it kind of adds to that mood, and it goes in harmony with that mood. So in the same manner here, Miss Meadows had chosen a lament just because it was kind of harmonious with her mood, and she could feel her pain more by singing that particular song. So she was teaching her students how to sing, and while teaching them, she was getting lost over and over again. And then she would realize that she was still inside the classroom, and she had to look after her class as well while teaching. So this is how we get to see how the thought of that particular letter was so capturing, that she was getting lost again and again, and then she had to make efforts to pull herself back to the classroom. So this is how we see that the psychology of a human being works. This is a tendency of a human being, and it is normal with everybody. It so happens with everyone. It is not about a particular person or about a particular character. It is a general behavior of a human being, and that's why we can call it the tendency of a human being. So this is what the author has tried to tell you about, that we as human beings do like this, feel like this, and go like this in our lives. So, a kind of a twist had entered in the story when it happened that one of the students turned up in her class, and she had come to call Miss Meadows to the office of Miss Fiat just because a telegram had come for her. So, you can understand when Miss Meadows received the news that a telegram had come for her, then she got very upset, even more upset, just because she got under the impression that her fiance must have committed suicide probably, and the telegram had carried that news for her. So she just rushed towards the office, and she reached there. Although it was against the rule of the school, according to the rule of the school, nobody was allowed to go through any letter or even telegram during the school hours, but in some cases telegrams were allowed to go through, just because telegrams in those days were the fastest way to send a message, and therefore people always used to symbolize the telegrams for the bad news, and that's why everybody would get kind of upset as soon as they get to hear that a telegram has come for them. So telegram was a signal of carrying bad news only, news that was related to death or some emergency news or accidental news. So all such news were expected out of a telegram. So it happened that she also expected the same and got very, very upset. And then she reached the office of Miss Viat. She sat there and then she was given her telegram. After giving her telegram, Miss Viat also started preparing herself to console Miss Meadows after she would have gone through the telegram, because Miss Viat was also expecting the same, that the telegram must have carried some extremely bad news such as death or accident or some emergency news, and that will surely make her feel very upset and she may probably start crying too. So in that case, Miss Fiat as a headmistress must be able to console her teacher, and for that she had started preparing herself. But then what happened was quite unexpected, just because after going through the telegram, Miss Meadows got brightened up and she was smiling, although she was also trying to hide her smile from Miss Viat. But again, this was an overwhelming emotion which she was not able to hide. And that overwhelming emotion of happiness, elation had started again reflecting in her behavior, and she was extremely happy seeing that telegram. Now, what was there in that telegram? The telegram had actually brought a good news for her, and in that telegram, it was written that her fiance told her through the telegram that he had simply jested in the letter which he had sent earlier, and there was no meaning in those words that were there in that letter. And he also told her how he had managed to purchase the hat stand that they had seen recently. So, this is how rather he had been making all the preparations for their marriage. And whatever he said in the previous letter was just a jest, was just a joke, was only for fun. And that changed her mood all of a sudden. And Miss Meadows got like brightened up and very happy, elated, and she was not able to control her emotions of happiness this time. So every time, earlier when she was sad, she was so sad, extremely sad, that she was not able to hide her emotion of sadness. And this time she is so very happy that she is not able to hide her emotion of happiness. So after she had gone through that, and there was no requirement for Miss Viat to try to console her teacher, so Miss Viat got kind of upset, and she realized that she had made a mistake by calling her for that telegram, and therefore she also gave an indirect warning to Miss Meadows by telling her that in general it is not allowed for the teachers to go through their letters or telegrams during the school hours, but it is only allowed in case the telegram is carrying an extremely bad news, which means news that is related to death or accident or something kind of an emergency. So she also gave the particular news, and she gave a very proper idea of everything, how it happens. And Miss Meadows had understood that she could not hide her emotions and smile and all from Miss Viat, and she realized that this was being reflected in her behavior. Although she had tried to manage and made all the possible efforts to hide her emotions of happiness this time. So Miss Fiat gave that warning, to which Miss Meadows simply replied in a positive way that she would surely take that into consideration from next time. And then Miss Meadows was allowed to leave from there, and while she was going towards her classroom again, after going through that telegram, she was extremely happy, and therefore the same corridor that appeared to be cold and grey to her had now changed just because she was feeling happy inside. And therefore, we come to this conclusion that it is all about how you feel inside that is always reflected outside in your behavior or your demeanor. And this is the core idea which has been portrayed in this story. And this core idea is actually manifesting the psychology of a human being, or the human tendency, we can say. So it happens that this story is talking about that moment, that thinking, and how a human being responds to the extreme emotions. This is what we have understood, and now it is very important for us to understand that the story contains the theme of despair, the theme of love, the theme of happiness, the theme of sadness, the theme of depression. So all these themes are there, and all these themes are there, but these themes are simply related to the mood, to the circumstances, how, it so happens. Now this is the most important point that I'm going to tell you here. It so happens that a circumstance arises, and that circumstance may be affecting our lives in a certain manner. If it is giving us some pain, if it is giving us some problem, trouble, sadness, then it happens that we tend to become sad, we tend to become upset, sorrowful, depressed. And that depression, if it is of extreme level, if it is overwhelming or vehement, then we fail to hide it, and it happens that uncontrollably, it happens that they start reflecting in our behavior. And this human tendency has been portrayed here in this story. So I hope you understood the story. The story was all about this, and in this particular video lecture, I just wanted to give you this core idea of the story in a summarized way. In another video lecture, I will try to give you the detail of this story. Thank you so much for watching.